around in 20, I believe it was 2010 or 2011, we were assisting in the Riverside County count. So pleasure to meet you all. I also am joined on the call with my colleagues Alex Werner and John Connery, who you'll meet in a little bit here. In the meantime, as we get going, feel free if there are any questions that come up during the presentation, feel free to enter them into the chat at any time, and me or John or Alex will chime in with answers, and then we'll also have some an opportunity at the end of the meeting today to have an open forum for a couple quick questions. Um, First of all, I just want to thank you all for being here and joining on the call. Obviously, the pit count is a huge countywide effort, really representing communities and jurisdictions and unincorporated areas of the county, all really service-based agencies, really all coming together for a very short period of time to put together a point in time count. So thank you all, and we certainly couldn't do this work without you. Um, a quick little agenda review of what we're going to get through today. A quick little recap of previous overall pit data, and then really a focus area of leaning in on the volunteer and registration info, and touching on the More Than a Count initiative that'll be enrolled into this year's count. We'll touch on some different roles and responsibilities throughout the count process, get into some count logistics and the Survey 123 survey instrument that will be used, and then review some future community planning sessions and some upcoming training opportunities. Before we get going, wanted to acknowledge and thank folks that have attended the previous session. For those that are new, we'll have a couple slides here that will provide some general kind of some history of the overall pit count. For those that have been on the previous call, appreciate your patience if a little bit of this is slightly repetitive, but definitely just wanted to get everyone up to speed with where we're at in the process. So real quick, on the screen here, you have the 2023 homeless point in time count numbers for Riverside County. On the top, you have the overall number, and then it is broken out by sheltered and unsheltered information below that. Most counties operate the point in time count on an every year or every other year basis. So the last count in Riverside County was conducted in 2023, and this year we'll be updating those numbers with 2025 numbers. In terms of the different components of a pit count, there are several different pieces that all encompass the overall point in time count effort. The main date to keep in mind here is the primary homeless street count day of January 22nd, 2025. So from 5:30 to 9:30, all jurisdictions across Riverside County will be conducting the point in time count from roughly 5:30 a.m. to 9:30. In the days following, Thursday, January 23rd, and Friday, January 24th, in a similar time frame in that 5:30 to 9:30 a.m. range, the unincorporated areas will be prioritized throughout Riverside County. And again, those 5:30 to 9:30, HUD does allow some flexibility in that end time. The focus with those time groupings is to avoid duplication. So we try to align with those times with as much as possible, but there is some flexibility granted on the day of the count. A little bit different this year is the homeless youth count portion, which, as you'll see on the screen here, is tied in at the same time as the general street count. In addition to that effort, there'll be a service-based count, which you'll see Wednesday, January 22nd. So that's 9 a.m. all the way through 5 p.m. And what those are existing service-based events, whether that's a meetup, a group meeting, a kind of a standard meeting that service agencies have used in the past, as a way for folks to come to a centralized location and present an opportunity to be interviewed and conduct the survey. So for all age groups, that's Wednesday, January 22nd, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then additionally, with in an effort to better count youth populations, those service-based counts will be extended through Friday, January 24th for youth only. So any youth serving agency that is interested in doing these service-based counts, they'll have the opportunity to do that Wednesday, January 22nd, Thursday, and Friday. Similar to previous years, HUD also does allow for a 7-day post-count process where if due to any inclement weather or other issue that may have arisen on a particular day, a community, a jurisdiction, an area can reevaluate if they need a post count process to be implemented to better serve and better count a certain region. As in previous years, there's a More Than a Count initiative, and I'll touch base on this a little bit later, but just as a quick overview, the More Than a Count initiative is an opportunity for those that indicate those veterans and youth experiencing homelessness that indicate on the day of the count that they would like to receive follow-up services. There is information that will be collected on the app that will allow teams to meet up with those folks and provide additional services immediately. All right, so the next thing I wanted to provide everyone on the call with is a QR code that will take you to the Riverside County Homeless Point in Time Count website. There's also a link that we can share in the chat as well at the conclusion of the call. This QR code and the website serve as the Pit Count hub for this year's point in time count. In particular, you'll see on the screen here is the register to volunteer link. So one of the main reasons we're happy to have you all on the call now is really to kind of kick off this volunteer push as we gear up for the point in time count. Obviously, on a blitz style count where we'll be conducting counts across Riverside County, we do need a huge volunteer number, a huge volunteer pool, a combination of city, county, and community-wide volunteers to really come together for those few days to get the count completed. So on the count, or excuse me, on the website, you'll see the link to register. And there's a lot of different opportunities that you can volunteer for. The overall general count, some of the come and be counted service-based counts. And in the days ahead here, excuse me, we'll also include a press kit option on this same website that will have links to social media templates, flyers, and as well as a link to some homeless count videos that were used in previous years, so folks can get a general feel for what a point in time count looks like. As I mentioned, it's the overall volunteer recruitment process. It is a county-wide effort to recruit volunteers. We're really hoping to tap into existing, lister of opportunities that exist within local jurisdictions and county-wide efforts to recruit volunteers. On the county side of things, the Riverside County folks will be kind of working behind the scenes, managing the volunteer list, and also conducting trainings for all volunteers. We'll also be working to assign volunteers to various deployment sites, and each jurisdiction and unincorporated team will be assigned a county coordinator that will kind of walk and guide them through the pit count process. Also, on the day of the count, all deployment sites and service-based sites will have incentives in tow. Those will be in this shape, in the form of kind of backpacks that will have miscellaneous items that will be distributed on the day of the count. All right, so in an effort to really ramp up volunteer recruitment, we're hoping that we can kind of tap into any volunteer opportunity possible. Um, like I mentioned, we'll have some press release information available. But we're also hoping that you all can assist us with kind of getting the word out, whether that's publishing information on various email public lists. If folks are connected with any local college or universities, those can serve as a great opportunity to recruit volunteers, and distribution of flyers that we have in place to get the word out as well. Here is the copy of a flyer that you'll be able to download and distribute as you see fit. You'll see the QR code, which will direct you to the Point in Time Count website hub. As a reminder, we have the volunteer registration form open through January 15th. At On January 15th, we closed that link down, and we really kind of switched gears into project organizing and really filtering out what volunteers are needed where, and distributing those lists and matching volunteers with their assigned deployment centers. So on the website, you'll see the link which directs you to the volunteer registration form. The volunteer registration form is kind of designed to be completed in about 5 to 7 minutes. It's a basic form with first name, last name, email address, and then basically what you are interested in participating. So here's a quick little, couple screenshots of what the core of the registration form will look like when you get there, so you're familiar with it when you take a stab at going through the volunteer registration process. As a reminder, there are several events related to the pit count that we're looking for assistance with. Both the general street-based count. Obviously, that's kind of the primary need for us, but there are other opportunities to be a deployment site and or come and be counted site that will be integrated and integral to the overall count process. We will be doing an online virtual training, which will take you through the entire process, get you up to speed on how to use the Survey 123 tool, and spread the word about some of the come and be counted events as well. I mentioned it earlier, but did want to highlight again the More Than a Count initiative. Obviously, the overall pit count number is a huge piece of the and the main reason we are doing the point in time count event, but there is the More Than a Count initiative. It's a countywide effort to provide day of support to all veteran and youth experiencing homelessness. So within the Survey 123 data collection app that all teams will be using on the day of the count, there's an option for any veteran and youth experiencing homelessness to request additional services. There'll be teams kind of spread out throughout the county. Excuse me. There'll be teams spread out throughout the county on call to receive these inputs and these pinpointed information that's collected in the app, and teams will be able to kind of connect with these folks immediately and try to connect them with services on the day of the count. This is a feature that will definitely be covering more in the upcoming training that will be shared in the first week of January. So there will be a lot more information on the ins and outs of the day of the count, the More Than a Count initiative, and the various tools that you'll be using on the day of the count. As a reminder, Riverside County is a large area to cover. It's the fourth largest county in California. It includes 28 cities, hence the desire from the county to really kind of separate out the city portion of the count and the unincorporated portion of the count. It is a huge undertaking. So again, when we get to these when we get to some of these areas, we really will need as much volunteer buy-in and participation that we can. So looking forward to having you on the call, participating and interested in the count, and looking forward to really seeing what the extent of our volunteer coverage when we get to the day of the count. A quick little update with where we're at in the process. We're currently in the process of meeting with city leaders throughout the county and working on meeting with all jurisdictions in Riverside County, and really kind of working through our game plans with the various deployment center sites. Working with them to tap into their existing outreach teams, their hotspots, and their general planning protocols for the day of the count. Additionally, we'll be working with unincorporated leaders in the surrounding areas outside of the incorporated areas to put together coverage plans for those surrounding areas as well. Within each of the jurisdictions and the unincorporated teams, we'll be working with them to divide up and break up their jurisdictions into coverage areas. So that's typically taking a city, whatever that city may be, and looking at it in terms of quadrants or hotspots, and thinking through how many teams we'll need on the day of the count to cover that assigned area. In the week or two prior to the count, we will be distributing the ArcGIS data collection tool that will be used on the day of the count. And those in those week or two prior to the count, that gives teams an opportunity to get familiar with the app, get comfortable using it, and then also if jurisdictions request it, it also gives them an opportunity to input some general hotspot information, some preliminary information that can be used for planning purposes in the lead up to the count. All right, with that in mind, I'll pass it over to my colleague John, who's gonna take things over from here and kind of start with kind of covering the deployment sites, and then get into eventually some of the specifics of the Survey 123 tool and some of the other components of the upcoming pit count. John?
Thanks, James. Just to build on what we were talking about with the volunteers and whatnot, on the day of the count, our teams will show up at deployment sites. Each jurisdiction will have a deployment site that can serve as that home base for the staff who are working on the count. There'll be a county coordinator there, probably some other staff from local cities, and potentially even county staff as well. But big picture, that's where the teams are going to show up on the morning of the count to start the process. Most teams will already be created. And then they'll go ahead, get through, the basics of it and then head out. Some teams, however, will need to make sure that that everybody showed up. It's the morning of, we're moving lots of people. There's always the chance that some people can't make it for whatever reason. That's going to be one of those things that our teams can get into once they start there. We're going to be asking on the day of the count that most of our teams show up between 5 and 5:30. Once we do that, there'll be a little bit of a time to check in so we can go ahead and verify that everybody who is supposed to be there is there. And if they are not there, where do we need to find some extra coverage for the maps and areas that they were going to be covering? And we'll go ahead and give a little bit of a run through about what our teams are going to be doing while they're out there, talk about any questions that may come up around the app, any questions that may come up around the More Than a Count initiative. Then we'll go ahead and get our teams together, make sure that everybody's on the same page about what areas they are going to be covered and what, if anything, needs to be covered in addition to what they're doing. And then the teams will go out. Our hope is that, most teams are out no later than around 6 o'clock. They'll go out and they'll cover their areas and tell the area is done. If they're starting to run out of time and there's still more time to go ahead and if they're still needing to cover larger areas, but they're running out of time, we're going to ask them to get in touch with the staff back at their site, and they can go ahead and start making arrangements to make sure that we have a plan for that area to be covered. Once everybody's done, they'll come back in and we'll have a little bit of a debrief, make sure that everything looks good data-wise, make sure that they didn't have any questions that still need to be addressed or what have you. On the morning of the count, when it comes to our teams, like I said, most teams will go ahead and already be in place by the time they show up to the event. Some may need to be set, just on the day of, because that's the way that each one of the sites wanted to work it. Others may need to take adjustments for, staff that are not there, or volunteers who couldn't make it, or what have you. So that's just one of the things that will take place. Some of the larger sites may have more of that, and it may take a little bit more time as they take steps to make sure all those areas are covered. So again, in the morning of, just bear with us as we get through that process. Most importantly, we want to make sure that everybody has an idea about what they're doing and that the teams are ready to go. When at all possible, we're going to be using our seasoned and trained outreach teams to go into areas that have high concentrations of persons experiencing homelessness. The idea is that we have our most knowledgeable, most experienced teams going to the areas where they're going to be able to best put that knowledge to use. And that our teams that have less knowledge, that are maybe community volunteers or just don't have as much familiarity, will be in areas that are going to have fewer people around for them to count, and they'll be able to focus much more on just that smaller number rather than that large number of people in certain areas of the jurisdiction that they are covering. Most teams we want to recommend have 3 to 4 persons in them. There's going to be somebody who's going to be designated as a team leader. Usually a good idea that this can be somebody who has past experience with the count. Sometimes we're going to have that person also act as the driver or serve multiple roles. Regardless, we are going to want a driver. We're talking 3 to 4 people. We're going to have hopefully folks coming to the deployment sites with vehicles that are ready to go and hold that many people. So keep that in mind too if you're signing up to participate in the count, that if you're potentially going to be a driver, you're going to be having, an additional 2 to 3 people in your car with you. We're going to have somebody who wants to act as the counter. They can be somebody who is also inputting the information into the app. It's best to have one person on the team filling that role so that we don't have any danger of, people getting counted twice. And then we're also going to have somebody who can act as sort of a lookout, an extra pair of eyes, and it can also help to manage the incentives. Some areas may have a law enforcement presence around. That could be in some areas and when needed. Sometimes that could be somebody who is actually with the team. Other times it may be somebody who is in a particular area or nearby. If that's the case, that'll be kind of done at an area by area basis, and you'll be able to get that information at your deployment site to know what the law enforcement presence is in your area and any information you need to be able to contact them or things of that nature. And then in addition, we're going to make sure that we've got our phone numbers out there. We want to be able to be in touch, make sure that we have the ability to get in contact with our team leads, get in contact with our county, our site coordinators, and be able to get in touch with folks really at every level of the process when that comes around. So we're going out and we're talking about counting on the street. That's going to be what our teams are doing for most of the day and most of the morning for their efforts here on the count. They'll be walking the streets looking to find people that they believe are experiencing homelessness, and then go ahead and start the survey process when we get there and find them. Like we said, there'll be the various team leaders. They'll get in and out, check in and out at the deployment site so that we can monitor all of our teams, make sure that they're out, make sure that they finished, make sure that we can recognize that they are finished. The areas that we hit for the count will also be surveyed later in the same day. And then we are in the process of gathering information on hotspots as well. Hotspots come from members of the community, come from some of our city partners. So if you have information on hotspots, we're certainly looking to get as much of that as possible so that we can help guide our teams into make sure that they are going to all the places that they need to hit. Our teams are going to be fairly locally based, locally sourced, but that being said, there can be a wide range of knowledge about people in the area. So if you have confirmed knowledge about areas that you want to make sure teams go to, please make sure to share that with us. There's never a problem about having too much knowledge about potential hotspots and potential areas about where to go. These are a little look at what the incentive bags are like. You can see some of the materials that are in there. They are being put together. They are going to have not only information on services, but they'll also have some of those aspects of winter gear and self-care gear that people need. So that's just a little preview about what some of the stuff will be in the backpack. We're also going to have the ability to share phone numbers for some of the folks on the More Than a Count initiative. Again, that's for our youth and veterans. We're going to keep mentioning that just because we want to make sure it's on people's radar, that when we see folks in those subpopulations, we want to take efforts to interface with them and provide outreach and potentially do it as soon as possible. They'll have the sheets and information that goes along with them for the count as well. So that'll all be part of the backpacks and the packets of information that all of our teams get. This information, these packets, these incentives with the backpacks will all be provided to the locations in the days leading up to the count. So that'll be brought to them. Don't worry about that yet. Just know that that's coming, and we'll be trying to make it as easy as possible for everybody who is going to be getting these incentives, and to, again, make it as easy as possible. All right, next slide. Okay, so again, we've got the service-based count, an opportunity for folks to come to locations and be able to be counted at those locations. There are going to be identified locations that are frequently visited by people experiencing homelessness, and that's where we're going to try to position those service-based areas. It's going to be for all age groups on the 22nd of January, and then we'll have some additional days for the youth and the couple days after that as well. Again, that's youth are a subpopulation that needs some of that extra work, some of that extra attention, and why they get a couple extra days to be able to be seen at the service-based locations. James? All right, so here's just a little bit of checklist about some of the stuff that we have talked about, that we have wanted our teams to be prepared for, and that some of the stuff that we've been covering, not only in this meeting, but some of the meetings that we've been holding with our jurisdictions as well. We've been holding meetings with the city and unincorporated leaderships. And in doing so, we've been identifying the county coordinators and law enforcement leads and working with them at those locations. We've been going ahead and starting the process of recruiting volunteers. That's going to be an ongoing process. And again, like James has said, one that we'll need as much help as we can get from members of this call, as well as folks beyond. It's a community-wide effort. We're going to be able to look to have as many volunteers from the community as we can get. We've been going ahead and making sure that the deployment sites work, that they are, for the most part, going to be nearly, they've been the same ones that were used in 2023. I've seen some questions about deployment sites on there. We'll go ahead and follow up with some of the questions in there as they pop up about that. But if you do have any questions about where your deployment sites are going to be, feel free to reach out. We're going to then go ahead and move on to some of the agencies that we've been working with to make sure that the outreach teams are ready to go in their areas, that they have some familiarity with those areas, that they know everything that they need to know to prepare to go out on the morning of the count. And we've been going ahead, and then we'll go ahead and move on to the trainings. We're going to have digital trainings that are going to be both live as well as recorded trainings that folks can go ahead and get to later on if they weren't able to be part of that live Zoom training that we're going to be holding later on. We've talked about the incentives. I won't get too much into those. Just know that they're out there and they're coming along. Our start time is looking to be able to get at 5:30 roughly. You know, folks are going to show up sometime between 5 and 5:30 is the guess for a lot of places. We're going to have some materials to get through, like I've already detailed, and then we're going to try to hopefully get our teams out somewhere between 5:30 and 6 o'clock in the morning. Again, there's, you know, a little fuzzy there because some of the areas are bigger, some of the areas are smaller. They're going to be able to get through some of their materials much faster than some of the other ones, or much slower. So just bear with us. You know, the morning of is always a, you know, a time where time is less important and more important is making sure everybody is prepared and knowledgeable about what they need to do. For our folks who are putting their teams, the team maps together, that would be coming from the county and city leads. Make sure that those come to us by December 13th. That again helps us make sure that we're good and moving forward with the planning process. And then once our teams are done and everything is wrapped up, we want to make sure we get that confirmation from each one of those teams that they have completed and that their areas are covered, and we can go ahead and mark them off as finished. All right, so the survey instrument itself is obviously a big portion of the event, and we want to make sure that you guys are all prepared and ready for that. There'll be training on how to use that as we get closer to our count. Big picture, it is really not all that different from what it has been in past years. There are a few changes that have been made. I'll talk about those in just a second, but for the most part, it's pretty much the exact same it was in 2023. So that should make for a lot easier access for our folks who have experience with it, knowing that they can able to roll that over from the previous count into this year. We will have the opportunity to send it out ahead of time so that people can sort of have some trial time with it, some stress tests and whatnot. So know that will be coming your way as well. Just a little bit of a word about the differences from the count, from the survey instrument from 2023 to 2025. HUD changed the way that they report and ask for information on a couple of the demographic categories. You can see the main ones of those are age, race and ethnicity, and gender identity as well. So we've got those up here and to see a little bit of what they look like, but those will be really the only main differences in the count. And that's just to bring us in line with the way that HUD has changed their reporting requirements. These are the exact same ones that HUD wants them to be. So that's why we have changed, so that we can be in compliance with what HUD is looking for and the way that HUD asks for data to be reported to them. Go ahead, James. All right. So we've been dealing out a lot of information about volunteers, a lot of information about where to go and how to go and all that sort of stuff. We want to make sure that you know that this is all available to you. We have a whole press kit of information that is out there for people to use, ways that you can share the information that we have been talking about, share about where to volunteer, share about how to share posts on social media, and just ways to be able to get the information out there that makes it as easy on you as possible. And then we can all make sure that we're pushing out the same information. So we encourage you guys all to go ahead and use the press kit and take advantage of that. Take advantage of the flyer, take advantage of the social media templates that are already on there. And those can be very helpful for you as information needs to be pushed out about the count and as you are sharing that in your communities. All right. This is one in a series of meetings that we've been doing. In addition to the sort of smaller meetings, we're having obviously these large community meetings as well. The next one of those will be January 9th, so keep that in mind. The planning process for this is going to be ongoing. It's going to be one that is built with a lot of collaboration and whatnot. So just know that while the meetings are taking place about once every month, there are a number of efforts that are being done in the background to work at a smaller level to be able to make sure that everything is in place, that we have the right people involved, that we have the right subpopulations that are targeted, and all things of that nature. So just know that while these meetings may be taking place on a monthly basis, there is a lot of effort being done behind the scenes by members of this community to make sure that this count is able to take place. So again, like James has said, we're very grateful for all of that effort. And also at the same time, know that you've got the information right there in front of you about when that next meeting is going to be. And certainly if you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to the COC and we can address those questions as soon as we get them. Next slide, James. All right, speaking of questions, I think we'll go ahead and open the floor to questions. That'll be held, James and I can answer the questions, and then some questions we can also have some assistance otherwise from. So I see Karen with her hand up. You want to go ahead and ask your question, Karen?
Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Just want to thank everybody across the continuum of care. Karen Roper here, chair of the continuum of care. And I want to give a shout out to the team at HWS and the consultant team as well. If I missed it, let me know. But I just wanted to ask the question about the objective for the percentage of observations versus surveys. And the reason why I wanted to bring that up is, to me, the more that we can do in the way of surveys, the better. Because sometimes people that you see, you can't necessarily guarantee that they're homeless. And sometimes, especially in our region, we have people that will leave our congregate and motel shelters and be in the city and get double counted. So I wanted to talk about that with all of us as a team, but can you remind me if we have an objective for a percentage between observational and surveys?
I can jump in if everyone can hear me. Tanya Torno, good afternoon. I think I know most of you on here, but I am the Deputy Director for Housing and Workforce Solutions. I'm hearing a bit of a back or echo on my end. Okay, good, not anymore. What I wanted to say, Karen, in response to that is we are having discussions, frequent discussions on how to reduce duplication. And part of that has been as a result of getting feedback from cities and partners. And certainly you and I have had conversations around this issue. So there is not necessarily a percentage of observational counts that we're trying to meet, but there are, in general, HUD provides guidance to communities about when to use or conduct an observational count. And generally, that is only when there are certain areas where people are known to be there, but there is some type of limited access. So we are working on making sure that that guidance is spelled out very clearly on the survey tool that all of the volunteers, everybody on this call will be using when they conduct the count. And I think part of what you'll see in the training that is being provided is, again, we'll definitely be focusing on making sure that that information is provided out ahead of time. And so we can avoid reasons why people would maybe not have a clear definition. I think historically in the past, I think we've kind of talked about how people have seen an empty tent and maybe identified, okay, we think there's 2 people that live here. And so, right, that is not necessarily the thing to do. And so part of our training will be to provide really clear clarification on when.
Tanya, you are muted.
Sorry about that. So again, it'll be further outlined in the training and in the tool.
Yeah, and Tanya, we've had great discussions, kind of more doing it across the board so everybody could have the benefit of it. Some of the ideas that we have is having some contracted providers, both in the congregate shelter setting and in our motel shelter, about building some incentives for our sheltered clients to try to reduce the probability of people leaving the shelters, but they often do leave our shelters very early, and they have freedom to do that. So we're looking at potentially providing some incentives, but obviously that you cannot mandate it. So I'm going to be having some more discussions with our contracted providers. I just wanted to throw that out there for the benefit of our entire continuum of care, so we can all be thinking about that.
All right. Thank you both for that question and answer. That was very helpful. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next hand up I see is Kyle Bush.
Hi, yes, I'm Kyle Bush, the U.S. Vets Outreach Coordinator. I was just wondering if Pitt and Count will be doing anything different versus the veteran and the civilian populace. Are we going to employ different types of strategies? Are we going to use different types of organizations that utilize more as like US Vets does, strictly kind of veteran populace to get them enrolled into SSVF or other veteran stated programs when we encounter them? Or do we have any guidelines along those lines?
Yeah, hi, Kyle. We actually have a special veterans initiative, and there's a planning meeting scheduled after this meeting.
No, I'm on that one too.
Yeah, so we'll
Okay.
be discussing that more in
Okay.
detail at that meeting.
Roger that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Next up, I see Matt Friedlander with a question. Matt, I think I've got you on. It looks like you're on mute.
Got me now?
Oh, there we go.
Hey, I put it in the chat, but I didn't see any response. Do you have any need for beanies, socks, or underwear? We do a sock and underwear drive every year, and I have a bunch in my garage, plus about 250 beanies that were donated to me last year by an insurance firm.
I believe that the incentives are, correct me if I'm wrong here, Emma, but they're being put together by a separate organization. So I don't know that we do know if we need or not. I don't know.
Yeah, so we actually, Matt, we went with a vendor this year that had everything included in the backpack, so to avoid having to stuff the backpacks, that effort actually is extraordinarily time and labor intensive. And so we were able to find a vendor that sold them fully packed. So we ordered them directly that way, and they'll be shipped just ready to go so that we can send them to the deployment sites. But with that said, we have our outreach teams that, operate all year long. And so we always can use those sorts of items. And we have an all county boots on the ground outreach meeting that occurs on a monthly basis, where all of our outreach teams are in person. And so we would be happy to make those available to them and distribute to our teams. Like Victor Beecham just put on the chat that it's awesome because he's one of our outreach teams with Path of Life Ministry. So we'll reach out to you.
Yeah, so okay, because I know we service both counties, so I have that same question into the folks doing San Bernardino County's pit count. So if I get the same response from them, then we can come back to this.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Let's see. Do we have anybody else who wants to raise their hand for a question? If nothing comes up now, of course, we're always available for further questions as they are, as they come up. We want to make sure that we're always available to answer questions. Natasha, I think got a hand up.
Hi. So in the survey,
I can't really hear you. Pretty faint. Yeah, I'm not getting anything. Is that just me?
Nope. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. So, in the survey that when you're volunteering, it doesn't have smaller cities like, well, not smaller, but Temecula, Murrieta, towns like that. Are those covered in surrounding areas, or will they be kind of like pick and chosen? I don't know how to say it, but
Tasha, I sent a note over to our HMIS team to check on that because someone in the chat had noted that Menifee wasn't showing as a volunteer location. I wanted to make
can you
sure
hear me
that
now? No. Okay, never mind.
No,
I'll put it in the chat.
we can hear you. Oh, maybe she can't hear us. But anyway, for the edification of everyone else, we'll go through and make sure that all of those city locations are listed. I know that at least one Menifee was not showing, so I want to make sure that we have an exhaustive list available for our volunteers. And to that point, if you see any other anomalies or what appear to be errors on the form, please email us at the coc@rivco.org. As James noted, this is the launch of our application, and we are human beings that are putting these things together, and we make mistakes. So if you see something, please feel free to send us a note, and we'll be happy to make the correction.
All right. Let's see. Next up, Garcia. Garcia Young.
My name's
Symbols on.
Young.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was gonna say that I do have because I think someone asked about the hotspots, but there's two of them. iFoster provides them for the youth specifically, and the other one that's for everyone is I don't know the name of it. So basically, they check your income and see if you're eligible to get one, and they also provide laptops for educational purposes only.
Okay, so you're talking about Wi-Fi hotspots?
Yes, to carry it around. Mm-hmm.
Great. Excellent information. Thank you for sharing. All right, we've got Alejandra with a hand up. Alejandra, do you have a question?
Looks like she's muted.
Give her a second to come off mute, or maybe that's it. Okay, well.
And then John, just also wanted to acknowledge that there's a couple questions about the specific training date. So as a reminder, there'll be an online, we'll have that both as a synchronous and asynchronous training option. So one of the benefits of getting everyone registered and funneled through the registration link is we'll send updates and pass along that information as it rolls out. We're targeting so that really the first week of January, everyone will have access to the training presentation. And then as Emma noted in the chat as well, there's also the additional community planning meeting on January 9th, where presumably we'll be pretty getting into some some of the nuts and bolts in the final prep and lead up for the end of the month count.
All right. Thank you, James. I think on that note, I want to see if Emma has any last things to add in. Let's see. I see Alejandro's question about the city of Norco being in there. That's one that, let's see, how do we ensure they can register without the public being able to select the agency? I'm not sure on that one. I think we'll have to, that'll be a question for the HMIS team that Emma was talking about. So
Yeah,
that we
and
can clear that up.
Alejandra, we're meeting individually with the cities. I think Zuli noted that she's the indicated person on our team that's been working with the cities to schedule those meetings. And so each city is receiving a registration link for their staff and the individuals that will be working on those deployment teams. So if it's not listed on the app, there have been some cities that have opted not to take on community volunteers. So we've made note of that, and we'll make sure that we don't assign folks to those locations. And with that, let's see, where can I find the flyer on the website? Victoria, which flyer are you referring to? If you're talking, we can't hear you. You can feel free to put it in the chat and we can send, Zuli can send it to you by email. All right, well, if there are no more questions, I will give you 6 minutes of your day back. Oh, press kit flyers. Yes, we do have a press kit, and Zuli is putting those links in the chat for you. Maybe I should give it just a last call for questions here as we're wrapping it up.
I see Sandra with the hand up. Sandra?
Oh, okay.
Good afternoon. Would you recommend that we not share the volunteer link until there's a decision made about adding those additional locations, or should we do as suggested in the chat to list Lake Elsinore as primary and then Marietta as secondary for those down in that region?
Yeah, you can go ahead and start sharing, and the way that you described is appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Mr. Victor.
Yeah, I was just wondering, forgive my tardiness, I was coming out of another meeting, but did I hear you say that you'll be meeting with each city individually and planning the pit count for that area? Okay.
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Sounds good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, last call for questions. And is the youth count a separate meeting? No, Victoria, the youth count is not going to be a separate meeting. Earlier in the presentation, we discussed that this year we will be counting youth during our general count, and we will also be incorporating the youth count into the service-based count. So there will be some specialized efforts or focused efforts in getting youth serving organizations to participate in the service-based count so that they can count youth as they're accessing services, but there will not be a separate youth count. And we will be incorporating in the training, in the overall volunteer training, some elements of how to approach youth and how to identify youth. And so that will be part of the overall volunteer training. All right. Anyone else? Got 3 minutes. All right. Well, I am going to go ahead and wrap it up. And again, thank you very much to all of our partners on the call. Thank you to ASR. If you have any questions that are burning that you forgot to ask, please feel free to reach out by email, coc@rivco.org. We are here for you. And thank you so much. I'll see you at the next meeting. Bye-bye.